Chief Justice is concerned. Well, let's get the views of someone well-versed in constitutional law expert, Advocate Paul Hoffman, also from Accountability Now. Advocate Hoffman, morning to you. So, here we are. Are we surprised?
Good morning, Gareth, and good morning to your viewers as well. No, we're not surprised. The truth is that the 4 judges on the shortlist were all capable of holding down the job, and the president has chosen the most experienced of the 4, which is always a safe choice. Remember, the previous Chief Justice went on long leave in May last year, and acting Chief Justice Zondo has effectively been leading the judiciary since then, because the official retirement came in October last year. So we have certainly taken our time about getting a replacement, and Zondo is clearly a safe pair of hands. I think he's a man with the necessary background and experience, and that the president has chosen him knowing full well that Chief Justice Zondo, appointed with effect from the 1st of April this year, will only be available as Chief Justice for just over 2 years. That being the case, we are going to have to go through this procedure all over again, and it remains to be seen whether any of the other shortlisted candidates from this round will pop up again in the next round for Chief Justice.
Advocate, you mentioned a safe pair of hands. Critics, I'll refer, of course, to the EFF. We even saw as the commissioner during the interviews, Julius Malema, you mentioned safe hands. Is the new appointment a convenient set of hands for President Ramaphosa?
Yes, I'm sure that from a political point of view, it was a convenient choice, and some in the press are already speculating that it's a thank you for not being too hard on the president and his son Andile in the Bosasa section of the State Capture Commission report. You will recall that there was evidence that President Ramaphosa received a R500,000 payment for the CR17 campaign from Gavin Watson, and that his son was in business with Bosasa in Africa. Those aspects have not come up yet. They may come up later, we don't know. But certainly the cynics will say that this is a thank you note, and it is the crowning glory on a long 25-year-long judicial career, which has to, by law, has to draw to an end in about 2 years. So we're going to have this all over again.
Yeah.
It could be that in the next round for the Chief Justice, I think Madlanga will probably be too old to put his hand up. Maya may or may not be the Deputy Chief Justice by then, and Malambo will have had time to clear his name of the scurrilous and apparently baseless allegations that were made against him of sexual impropriety. So it's possible that he will come from left field in the next round of Chief Justice nominations and succeed to the position held as from the 1st of April.
Let me ask you this, Advocate, as well, just in closing, before I say goodbye to you as well. As far as the functioning of the JSC is concerned, you mentioned quite rightly former Chief Justice Mogoeng taking that long leave as well. Is the new Chief Justice carrying a poisoned chalice? Is there a lot for him to have to fix, or can he pick up a relatively well-functioning baton and continue running around the judicial racetrack?
Well, you mentioned Julius Malema's displeasure with what has happened. He actually tweeted, "It's a girl," quite inappropriately when the interviews were finished. It's not a girl, and the JSC continues to be dysfunctional and will continue so until such time as legislative reform, which isn't the work of the Chief Justice or the chairman of the JSC, reduces the number of politicians who pollute the Judicial Service Commission. It does work better when it's under the helm of a capable chair. We have seen Judge Zondo chairing the JSC far better than his predecessor, and certainly far better than the acting chair who presided when the 4 nominees were interviewed by the JSC. But I think the JSC is under a lot of pressure from civil society organizations. There's a phalanx of NGOs who are sharpening their knives for the really unprocedural and unconstitutional step of making a recommendation after the interviews. That isn't what the JSC is required to do. The president is required to make the appointment after consultation with the JSC and the political parties in Parliament. So that might have led to litigation, and that might have also informed the decision to appoint Zondo, whose candidature is not open to criticism because it carries an illegal recommendation from the JSC.
Advocate, it's always good to have you with us. I really appreciate your time. Going to be very interesting as we continue to unpack the appointment of the new Chief Justice, Raymond Zondo. That was Advocate Paul Hoffman, constitutional law expert, of course, and from one of the organizations that we often speak to, TUMZA, when it comes to anything constitutional, and with the questions being raised as well by the EFF back when they had these JSC interviews. And I think that's going to be one of the bigger discussions going forward in the day is, yes, Raymond Zondo has been appointed, but there's still questions around the conduct of those JSC interviews. That's still where we keep going back to. Every person we've spoken to takes us back to those interviews.